Hello, Louisa here from Veloworld. Today, in collaboration with Green Guardians, we're going to learn some basic bike maintenance. In this video, we'll be covering how to remove your front and back wheels, what tools you should be carrying with you on a ride, how to remove the inner tube, how to do a puncture repair, how to put your tyre back on the wheel, how to put air in your tyres, how to put your wheels back on once you're finished, choosing the correct new inner tube for your bike. Let's get started. To remove the wheel on a bike with V-brakes, you need to first release the noodle so that the tyre will fit past the brake pads. To do this, squeeze the two brake arms together. Then you can release the noodle. Now you can take the wheel off. Pull the quick release lever open and loosen the adjusting nut. You can now remove the wheel. If you're removing the rear wheel, first give your chain some slack by shifting to the smallest gear and chainring. Again, pull the quick release lever open and loosen the adjusting nut. Then, pull down and back on the rear derailleur to release the cog from the chain. You should always carry a spare inner tube, a pair of tyre levers and a puncture repair kit. The puncture repair kit will contain glue, sandpaper, patches, chalk and a crayon. Tyre levers are used for getting tyres off a wheel. There are lots of different designs of tyre lever, but they all basically have the same function. There will be a thin, curved end that is designed to slide between the tyre and the rim of your wheel. The other end of the lever will normally have a little hook on it. This lets you hook the first lever onto a spoke to hold it in place while you put the second one in. Push the bit of the tyre next to the rim away from the rim of the wheel. This part is called the bead. Get one of the tyre levers and insert the hooked end underneath the tyre and lift it out of the rim. Use the little hook on the end to loop it around one of your spokes to keep it in place. Do the same with a second lever a few inches away and peel the tyre off the wheel like so. Once half of your tyre is off, you can pull the inner tube out, remembering to remove the valve. Feel carefully inside the tyre to look for the object which has caused the puncture. Remove whatever you find. When you're on the road, you ideally want to replace the inner tube with a new one and leave the puncture repair until you get home. You should always carry a portable hand pump with you and familiarise yourself with how it works. There are three main types of valves on inner tubes: Presta, Dunlop and Schrader. This tube has a Schrader valve. This floor pump has a double head. One side is for a Presta valve and the other side is for Dunlop and Schrader valves. The new inner tube comes completely flat and we need to inflate it slightly before installing it in the tyre. Remove the valve cap and insert the valve into the pump's head. Inflate the tube slightly to give it some shape. Now we can install a new tube. Insert the inner tube valve into the valve hole and screw on a lock ring if it has one. Then start feeding the inner tube inside the tyre. Because we've given it some air, there's less risk of the tube twisting inside the tyre. First, try to find the puncture. This tube has a very big puncture. This is not repairable. If it's a smaller puncture, start by drawing a circle around it using the crayon in your kit or a biro pen. Then, crisscross lines over the centre of the puncture. This will help you identify the puncture more easily. Grab your piece of sandpaper and roughen up the area in the circle. The circle might rub away, but you'll still have the crisscross pattern to locate the puncture area. Then get your tube of glue. Don't keep this glue for too long as it will start to dry out. Spread some glue over the puncture area, about the same size of the patch you're going to use. Leave it to dry for 5 minutes. After 5 minutes, peel the metal foil away from your patch, making sure you don't touch the rubbery, sticky part of the patch. Place the patch on the centre of your puncture. Rub the back of the patch using your finger or a flat tool to squeeze out any air bubbles. Grate some chalk over the patch to protect the inside of your tyre in case there is any glue left over. This tube is now ready to put air into and go back on the wheel. Once the tube is inside the tyre, push the beads of the tyre into the wheel frame like so. You'll usually find the last part of the tyre is a bit difficult to push into the frame. Don't use a tyre lever, as this could cause another puncture. Instead, place the tyre on the ground with the last section of the tyre to go in nearest the ground. Push the sides of the tyre down, making sure the beads of the tyre is in the centre of the rim. Once you do this, it should be easy to just pop the remainder of the tyre into the rim. Check how much air to put in your tyre by reading the PSI numbers on the tyre. And this tyre has a minimum PSI of 35 and a maximum of 80. This floor pump has a gauge which measures the tyre's PSI, so you can make sure you have the optimum amount of air in your tyre. If you don't have a floor pump, just use your hand pump, so just keep feeling the tyre as you go and stop when it feels firm. Here, we are pushing the valve down and attaching the pump head, securing it in place. Now we start to pump, keeping an eye on the gauge. Your front tyre will generally need less air than your rear, as it takes less weight, so we're only going to inflate this tyre to 40 psi. After screwing the dust cap back onto the valve, we're now going to reinstall the wheel on the bike. The quick release should be on the non-drive side of the bike, or on the side of the bike without your chain, cassette and chain rings. So place your wheel in your dropouts. Once it's in, start turning the bolt while checking the pressure on the quick release. A properly tightened quick release lever should leave an imprint in your hand when you close it fully. Next, check your wheel is centred. You can tell that this wheel isn't centred because there is a bigger gap on the left side than the right. If this happens, reopen your quick release and centre it by looking down the wheel and making the necessary adjustments to make it sit straight. Remember to reconnect your brakes by putting the noodle back in its cradle. Turn your wheel and activate the brake to make sure they're working properly. Choosing a new inner tube for your bike can seem quite complex, but the best way to check what size tube you need is to look on the sidewall of your tyre. For example, this tyre says 28 and 1 3/8 or 700 by 35C. In the UK, we look at the latter. 700 tells you the diameter of the wheel, and 35C is the volume of the tyre. Look for an inner tube which fits these dimensions. Another example is this tyre. This is for a kid's bike and it says 20 by 2.00. This means it's 20 inches in diameter and 2 inches in volume. You can also look at your old inner tube. This tube says 26 by 2.10 inches. And that's it. That was the basics of what you needed to know about tyres, tubes and punctures. I hope you found this video to be useful. Make sure you like, comment and share it if you did. Thank you and goodbye.